Calling the meeting to order. Did everybody have the opportunity to review the minutes from March? Are there any motions?
I can make a motion to approve.
Any second?
I can second.
Okay, all in favor? Well, any discussion, first of all? Any additions or deletions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks like everybody. Okay. All right. Tim is not here. I do have a message in to Beth about getting a representative from TPZ to join us in the meetings. So Sheila, I'm going to move on to you now.
Sure. So the Board of Selectmen met on April 13th, I believe it was. We had two items that I don't want to just summarize the entire meeting for you because I know everybody's able to kind of look online and Beth sends out usually a pretty good summary of what's going on. But two items of particular note. At the Ordinance Committee meeting, we were discussing the ordinances of the town, including the set, I believe it's chapter 75, that creates the boards and commissions. And one thing that we did discover is that apparently in the ordinance, it says that all boards and commissions should meet, unless otherwise noted, a minimum of 6 times per year. So that sort of brought us into some discussion about wanting to go back. Each of the liaisons from the Board of Selectmen is meant to go back to their board and commission and discuss this. Like, you know, it's a possibility that you don't have to do anything. You could just change your meeting schedule so you're meeting every other month or whatever you'd like to do. But then also to try to get some feedback from boards and commissions to see how frequently they feel they should be meeting. There's a possibility that we could meet even less frequently. We could move it to quarterly if a board or commission has an interest in pursuing that. But the idea would be to let people know that you have some options. You don't have to have a monthly meeting if you don't want to. And that way you guys can, I guess, discuss that, as it comes up for the board, and then let me know what your thoughts are. That's something that we're going to continue to be reviewing, that set of chapters. And what we have in mind is to sort of streamline as much as possible, because it's not only all the volunteer time that's absorbed in meetings, but then there's also the staff time. I'm looking at you, Tony, you're in the box below me, preparing for the meetings, especially when we're doing them, remote, or if we're going to have a hybrid option in the future. That's a lot of staff work to make it available. And then the minutes and the agendas have to be filed, and those have to be uploaded to the website, et cetera. So it's a bunch of government that is taking place. And if you want to streamline and do less frequent meetings, that is completely an option. And then secondarily, the Ordinance Committee heard from Chief Cappiello, Frank Cappiello, regarding littering. And he did talk to us about the concern he has, that he's got that state law, and we talked a little bit about how he uses that and how his officers are able to use that law. And he said one of the things that we have to be careful of is that there can be confusion if there are two different laws. Well, which one would the summons be under? Would it be the state law, or if we created a new local law? He also thought it would not be a good idea to be doing anything with the thought in mind that there would be fines coming from that. He didn't think that would sort of be the appropriate way that policing takes place, I think was what he was talking about was. And then thirdly, he said that he doesn't know that it would make a difference, because he feels that he has the ability to sort of crack down on people who are caught littering, and certainly his officers can do that. The bigger question is, if we want to prevent littering or we want to discourage littering, he thought that a public information campaign is going to go a lot further to do that. And he also offered to make his officers available if there's going to be events like Rid Litter Day and that sort of thing. We talked about how there was a group from Amity High School that had cleaned up Amity Road, and, you know, they needed a police cruiser to, you know, sort of drive on the side of the road with them to make sure that traffic wasn't going to be dangerous for them. But he would be very interested in those sorts of efforts and the general public information campaign that we think we should be launching. So we did discuss that at the Board of Selectmen level, and everyone thought that would be a good idea, that we should be really emphasizing to people that we want to keep Woodbridge beautiful. It's part of the beautification of the town, and get out some public information. So that's my report from Board of Selectmen for you.
And we make comments?
Sure, you have questions, comments? Yeah.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. We have everything that we essentially have in place other than additional informational meetings, which tend to be limited in attendance.
Can you raise your volume? It went down.
Oh,
It was fine and then it went down. Yeah,
is that better?
a little bit.
Not sure. Can you hear me now?
We,
Faintly, but yes.
yeah, okay.
All right. Well, we have essentially everything you mentioned in place, and obviously it's not working. I recently took it upon myself to find out what the public opinion is regarding a local rather than relying on a state ordinance would be if one were developed. And I have a petition with, right now it has 94 signatures of residents in Woodbridge who would like to see that happen. The reasons why, and I've heard a lot from a lot of people, negative, positive, mostly positive, were that they'd like to see things expedited. If we were to rely on state ordinances, that would involve more processes that we'd have to go through in order to get anything enforced. And that ordinance does involve fines and repercussions. Now, again, when I spoke with the police, at that time they were in favor of it because it gave them greater access to investigate dumping and et cetera.
Leslie, can I just interrupt for a minute? Is it Chief Cappiello you've spoken to?
Not the chief, no.
Okay. So I would really encourage you to speak with him directly because he didn't share those concerns with us. So maybe you should talk with him.
Yeah, it was the person I spoke with. It was at the time that we had that major dumping incident. And he took, okay, so the good example is I told you what happened at that. The information, the litter was actually presented to them. The person's name and address and phone number were there on bank statements. The person lived in Ansonia, and the person was contacted by the police. And the person, essentially, he and his son admitted, yeah, we throw things there sometimes, etc. And the way it was phrased was, and don't quote the words, but it was more or less, well, what are you going to do about it? Knowing full well there were no repercussions from us, and the police.
Leslie, again, I don't mean to interrupt, but Frank Cappiello told us that he's not having a problem with enforcement and that his officers do have the tools they need. So that's sort of at odds with what you're describing. So I would really maybe urge you to talk with Chief Cappiello, because it's important that we hear. I mean, if there was a problem, the chief should come and talk to us about it.
I think the problem is that we have litter all over the place and people want to stop it and they're tired of picking it up. The way it's enforced could be essentially devised if an ordinance were created. That doesn't necessarily mean he has to or they have to impose fines per se. Could be warnings. There's a whole bunch of things they can do, and I agree with you. I can talk with them, but I think the general aura was people were surprised there was no local ordinance, as other towns surrounding us, except Bethany, have one.
Right. So this is an example of the public information campaign. We think we need to get out there because people shouldn't be surprised. They should know that there's a state law and that they can't litter. And that it is enforced by the police.
Okay,
So let's start by informing the public of what the actual facts are, and And then I think, one of the things we said at the ordinance committee is we want to start with that public information campaign. And we
Right.
want to be able to measure if there still is a need for something in addition to that. First, we have to make sure that people know what the current law is and what the current urging is, that people should not litter in Woodbridge. We definitely agree that people should not be littering
Anywhere,
Woodbridge.
yeah, anywhere.
Yeah. No, when we're taking it quite seriously to say the most efficient way to get this accomplished, which is a reduction in litter, is a public information campaign and some beautification efforts. Because when you do see trash on the side of the road, you're more likely to throw it out. If you do not see trash anywhere on the side of the road, you're more likely to keep it in your car until you get to a place where you can put it in a proper receptacle.
So you're essentially suggesting that short of having a public information campaign, right now, the way it is, which is what you just described, that's going to reduce, that's going to change our status somehow, miraculously, that people are just going to, someone had suggested a slogan, which was reconsider, don't litter, which is, a very simplistic thing, but people aren't doing it. And the feedback I got from the transfer station, which is where I got most of my signatures, was that people were very surprised and upset that there was no local ordinance because of mostly because of the time element, and that people would at least be more aware of the fact that if there were a deterrent, they might not do what they're doing now.
So I think our understanding at the ordinance committee is there is a deterrent, there is a law. We didn't hear anything about a time element that's making it more cumbersome. We heard from the chief that he's got the tools he needs from an enforcement standpoint with the existing state law. So if that's not the case, we do need to hear that, but I think we need to hear that from the chief. So I would urge you to speak with him directly.
Yeah.
And in the interest, and Sheila, in the interest of time, so you're suggesting that Leslie speak with the chief, have him address the ordinance committee with any concerns after Leslie speaks with the chief, and perhaps Leslie, if you have the petition, which I believe my husband actually signed, not about the ordinance, I think perhaps submitting the signatures to the ordinance committee for them to review as well would be the best bet to do. Is that correct, Sheila? I don't want to. Is that
I would say petitions go directly to the Board of Selectmen. You bring them to the town
Okay.
clerk. She certifies them.
And how many people have to sign the petition?
Well, it
in
has to be a petition that's set up in a certain way, and I think the town clerk can advise. I
Okay.
don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Sheila?
And that's about it, but I am interested to hear your thoughts about potential meeting schedule changes and anything you'd like to see written into the ordinance to clarify things. And then, Nicole, I did share with you a link to the our favorite 1982 Cupop survey booklet. So I sent a link over with that, and it actually does say something about the number of people who are make a quorum, and I think the frequency of meetings too. So we'll have to check that. It may be an anachronism, maybe out of time because it's from 82.
Yeah. Is there a problem with what we, the times that we meet, or do we want to reduce that? Is that something?
That's a question for you guys.
Okay.
So addressing the meeting time, Sheila, back a few months ago, and I actually spoke with Tony about this briefly, asking about this. We have voted on our schedule through January. Is that accurate, Tony? Knowing that we do not meet typically unless a project arises the months of December, the months of, Tony, you have to help me here, the months of
June,
November.
July and August.
July,
yeah.
August, and December. So
Right.
typically we meet 9 months of the
Right.
year.
Right. So
Although it's on the schedule, so as I explained, well, we would have to motion to exclude them so I could send a cancellation notice.
correct. So I think, typically now, Sheila, we meet, barring any issues, 9 times a year. So 9 out of the 12 months currently. Of course, once we review it, when the time comes to review our schedule for, 2023, perhaps at that point, we could talk about that. about perhaps I mean, again, I'm assuming that Sheila, your ordinance committee or whomever is going to be reviewing meeting schedule, right? And frequency. So perhaps by the time we vote on the new schedule, that may be already decided for us for committees. But at this time, we're already voted through just 2023. So I'm sure in
22, I think.
22 through December 22.
right.
If
So in
I'd like,
2023.
I would just like to state that, nine meetings per year seems doable, and we do have a lot to talk about. And, right now, I would say let's stay with the 9, unless, we see in December that, our agenda items have decreased. We can decide on 6, but at this point in time, I don't see much difference between 6 and 9.
Right, and that's what I was saying too, Laura. I agree. We already have our
Mhm.
schedule situated for the
Mhm.
year. We can address these potential issues for our 2023 schedule.
Right.
Other
Right.
thoughts from the committee?
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay.
So Nicole,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, since we're on the subject and we do have a quorum this evening, did
Mhm.
you want to someone make a motion to not meet in July, August, and December? So then I could proceed with cancellation notices to the original schedule?
I think they're already that's the way it is,
I
right?
thought
No,
that,
no, because Laura
Mhm.
had motioned last time when we voted to put it and then decide month by month to cancel. So our schedule that's filed with the clerk is for every month.
Gotcha.
Right, but
Okay.
the only reason why I wouldn't do that, Tony, at this meeting is because during which is going to be a very lengthy report tonight, I want to talk about potential projects for this committee, and I just
Right.
want to ensure
Right.
that we have the
Okay.
appropriate time
Yes, right.
to potentially complete it, to be assigned particular projects, et cetera. You know what I mean? I just don't think at
I'll
this
put it on
point
the
in
sch-
time.
I'll put it on the
Mhm.
schedule for next month then.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other thoughts?
No, I agree with you, Nicole.
All right. So my report, I will do the short part first and the lengthy part last. The first part will be the housing committee, although it's short tonight. We've been working very hard on this report. We've been meeting weekly at this point. We've been talking every day regarding it. It will be completed this week. We've made many changes to a report that was submitted to us by RKG and Scrog, who are the two agencies that are helping us with this housing report. So the Board of Selectmen will have this report this week. We plan on, and I think that's basically all I have to say about that. It should be in your hands, Sheila, very shortly. So a lot of work went into this, a lot of hours, and I'm very pleased with the way that things are turning out. We had a great group of people, and I just want to say that everybody worked very hard, and we are very happy to be turning this over now to the Board of Selectmen. So that will be forthcoming. A copy of the report, as always, will be made available to everyone, as everything is on our page, which is in the Woodbridge page under housing. So that's my update with housing. In-person meetings at this point, and I'm sure Tony will tell me if anything has changed since we spoke last week, but in-person meetings are occurring after April 30th. There is no hybrid. So unless something changes, I know I hear numbers going up.
Yeah.
It's a fluid situation.
Yeah.
But we must meet in person after April 30th. So if something changes, I will be the first one to email you. I'm sure Tony will as well, to update us on that. I have already met in person. I know other committees have met in person, and commissions. So we'll see what happens by the end of May.
Can I ask a quick question? The 3 weeks in not being in red, does that rule not apply anymore? The town had to not be red for 3 weeks for in-person to take place, but I didn't know if there was a stop time to that rule. Just curious.
Tony, you want to answer that?
My understanding is because I had that same exact question and I conferred with Betsy Yagla this morning. And at this point, all meetings are to be held in person. Sheila, unless you have some input other than that, that's my understanding and take on going forward after April 30th. It's in person.
I can tell you the last we heard, and I did get a chance to speak with our state representative delegation at the ribbon cutting ceremony or the announcement thing about the grant for the old firehouse. They are looking at this up in Hartford, and they do expect that they're going to be able to get something passed before April 30th, so that
Good.
if towns want to opt,
Yes,
continue.
that's what it should be. Yeah.
Yes, they're thinking it will be optional. That being said, that's what they're saying. They haven't actually passed. So they would need to get that through
Yeah.
and to the governor.
And it just
Right,
doesn't
so
make
so-
They do
sense.
seem to be working on something, so I wouldn't say for sure that
Right.
we will not have an option in May. We may have an option in May.
It just doesn't make sense. I think, COVID has taught us that hybrids, Zoom, the WebEx works. And so why can't we continue to use it? It's a good model, especially for people, they're still concerned about COVID. I mean, we're still not out of the woods. Why put people in harm's way and say, no, everybody's got to be in person, when you can give them an option and they can choose to go in person, or they can choose to go, Zoom or with WebEx or a hybrid. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I would like that, brought back to the powers to be, to say that a lot of people feel the same way that I do.
Right. Thank you, Laura. As indicated, it does expire April 30th. Hopefully, as Sheila indicated, something will be discussed up in Hartford, and we will be notified, I'm assuming, immediately on that. So I will
Thank you,
be in
Sheila.
constant contact. I'm sure Sheila will let us know, and Tony, as soon as we hear
Yeah.
something from Hartford. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, Cupop projects. So while I was in my quarantine, because yes, I did have COVID recently, I read the entire POCD and went through the action items and the action agenda that we have for the POCD where Cupop is mentioned. This is going to be a little lengthy. I'm going to try to cut it as short as possible. I have had lengthy conversations with Sheila, our liaison. Thank you for speaking with me for that very long period of time. I have spoken with Tim Austin from Conservation. I have spoken briefly with Dwight Rowland, who's in charge of the firehouse renovation, to have some questions answered, and I'll talk about that in a second. And I'm in the process of setting up a meeting to speak with Beth as well. So obviously I couldn't do that in person because I was in quarantine for a little bit. So I will keep you posted on that. So I'm going to try to go in somewhat of an order just to let you know for the action agenda items that we have currently and some ideas I had for projects for us, which I will present to Beth at the appropriate time and also discuss with you guys to see what your positions are on them. So one of the action items that we have here in the POCD is that we are to lend the town support where possible to provide efforts by WL Woodbridge Land Trust to maintain town trails. Now, I know that Tim Austin had mentioned how conservation was working in conjunction with the trail master. Whose name I have written here. Somebody help me out here.
Andy Danzig.
Thank you.
Danzig, yeah. Andy.
Regarding the issue on Oak Hill Lane, as he was discussing as it connects to Fitzgerald. But there are other trails, obviously, plenty of trails throughout Woodbridge that he has suggested that I contact him, the trail master, to discuss possibilities of how Cupop can assist. Perhaps having events like Sheila indicated, something in conjunction with a littering event, something of that nature to maintain the trails with them. I know that Woodbridge Land Trust also has events in conjunction.
You froze.
You froze,
regarding-
Nicole. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Regarding
we
that.
lost you
froze.
for a minute there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, I left off. I was going to have conversations with the trail master to see if there's any way that Cupop can assist in having events that would be in conjunction with ridding of littering events throughout the trails. I know that Woodbridge Land Trust does have or has had in the past trail days with the trail master. So perhaps we can become involved in that, but that's one possibility.
We had him in, just to add to that real quick, Nicole, we did have Andy come in, he did a presentation, he gave us some dates, and that's it. It's all up to the volunteers to show up on the dates that he throws out there, but he has come, and we've invited him to our meetings, and he's done reports. Then I was kind of chasing him for a while to try to stay in communication, but he's really good about posting all his information, so I felt like I was just kind of the middleman repeating what he was posting. So but yeah, so we have kind of started that before you joined. Just so you know.
Good.
All right, great. That's great. So it sounds like he's amenable to working with
Yes.
volunteers. That'd be fantastic.
Nicole, I just want to mention too, I always walk behind town hall, and I walked this just today. The trails look beautiful. Trails that were not passable. So they must have been working on it just this month or so, because they're just completely all walkable and in really great condition.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So hopefully all of the trails that are.
Talking about trails, can I just make a comment at this point in time? If I may, or do you want to continue with the report and then I can ask later?
Is it about the trails or?
Well, I noticed that the barberries are coming back. They're
Okay,
coming
yeah,
back
we'll
up.
address.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll address that towards let me get through this report and we'll do that.
Okay.
Is somebody having feedback? Is that me?
Yeah, I am too. Yeah.
I am too.
So everybody should put themselves on mute then.
Yeah, put it on
Unless
mute.
they're talking.
And then we'll see if it's me. Okay, great. Okay. There was one of the action items was to develop an open space plan, which, as you're aware, conservation does have that plan. So that action item has been completed. There was an action item to assess the emergency shelter options. The adequacy of the center building, the schools, and other town facilities as emergency shelters and identify needed improvements. Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a hazards planning grant, and there were workshops. I'm reading from my notes, Sheila, so correct me if I'm wrong. And so, and as they pertain to emergency shelter and hazards planning, in addition, as you're aware, and we have talked about this, the HVAC system is phase 1 of the center school that will be the AC and heating for the center building as well as the gym, which obviously is potentially a hazards issue, because let's think about if, God forbid, we have to stay at the center school or for a shelter situation and we're still in the midst of COVID, that HVAC system is very dated and it would not provide the appropriate air quality necessary for us to utilize that. So that is going to be phase 1. And then, of course, and I believe it's phase 2, Sheila, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but working on the attached police department would be phase 2. So that is actually being worked on right now by town officials. Building commission is doing that, I believe. Another action item was to assess how recreation facilities and the pool and the clubhouse at the country club could be utilized. Well, we all know that that's not possible at this point, so that can be crossed off the action item. One area where I think we can work on something here. And this actually, I was going to ask Laura to work in conjunction with DEI, I was going to say DEI, and to work on this project. And perhaps I spoke with Sheila, maybe potentially utilizing some of the ARPA funding. It's the accessibility of buildings and properties within town to those who handicapped individuals who are in wheelchairs. We do know that the town hall is not accessible. And so perhaps that's something that can be looked at to utilize some of the ARPA funding to make it accessible. I do know that there were obviously issues with the senior center with the accessibility ramp there with the flooding. I don't know how accessible a lot of the fields are for people to go and watch games. I know I was in a wheelchair for quite some time. I know it was very difficult to get where I needed to be at the baseball fields, etc. I know we have the Pease Park playground that is accessible. I know, being on the dog park original board, that's accessible. So I was kind of looking into working with DEI and having Cupop work with DEI in making all things accessible throughout town, as it should be. I'm talking like at the dog park, we have the beautification program going on in the green. In the dog park, we have specific benches for handicapped individuals, and those can be purchased, and we had those donated to our park. Having handicap accessible water fountains within the green, buildings accessibility, et cetera, and not dismissing the fields, as I indicated. Parents, grandparents, whomever who want to see their children play sports. So I think that this is something that perhaps would be one of our projects. I have others, but one of our projects that we could look into and work in conjunction with DEI. So any thoughts on that? Laura, you're on mute.
The grants, these grants are the ARA grants?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. So there are funds available through ARA, and Cupop would like to work with DEI to make sure that all the buildings and facilities in Woodbridge are accessible to everyone.
Yes, I mean,
Yes.
that's the general idea.
Okay, okay.
Of course, I would love to do a site visits throughout the town to
Mhm.
see what we're dealing with here.
And
what
it's a good
accessible.
idea to include us to do the site visits, because
Of
I
course,
think that
yeah,
that's,
everybody. I want everybody
yeah,
to be involved.
yeah, because I used to do that, and I think it was very educational for everyone
Right.
to see, these are the issues and these are the problems. But the
Right.
other thing I think we need to address is people are concerned that it takes forever to get things done in town. I mean, we've been working on the old firehouse forever, since way back in 2005, 2004. We have wanted a cafe in the firehouse forever. People keep coming up to me and telling me, why can't we have, a cafe in one of the bays of the firehouse?
That we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, to build community. So these are all things that we've been talking about, and they're good, opportunities. And it's just like, we need to expedite them so that,
Right.
I know money is tight. I know money is the issue, and that's what causes us to, put them on the back burner. But
Well, what I would suggest, Laura, and you're 100% right, things take a long time, unfortunately. So what I would suggest is for us to take that first initial step and work in conjunction with DEI and make a concerted effort that that's one of our projects that we would like to do give ourselves for 2022. And then we can perhaps investigate possible grants that may be available to allow all of the fields and all of the facilities to be ADA accessible. But our first step would be to create an action plan for Cupop.
An action plan, yeah.
Okay, so that's one of my possibilities, and I don't need anybody to make decisions now, but I'm going to put these all out there, and then I would love your input. If we can't get to it today, we could definitely put it on the agenda for next week. Right. I have a lot, so bear with me to go through this. So that is one possible project. Another project or action item, I think I should say, is that we should be examining the current uses of the town green grounds and find appropriate site uses for them. Now, we all know that live here that we have rec, the library, and human services, just name a few, who do have events on the green, especially during the summer. We have movie nights, which is through the library. We have the bands that come and play and things of that nature. I don't think it would hurt to take a second look to see if there's any other community events, because again, just like Laura was just saying, everybody is starving for community involvement, and the more that we have, the better. And those are pretty well attended, those events that we have on the green. And if we want to create a center which is social in nature for everybody in town. I mean, look at by nature of the geography there. We have the Fitzgerald Trail fields that people walk. We have the dog park. We have which is very social. We have the community gardens. We're now going to have this fire department center, which I'll talk to you about in a minute because I have information about that. So why not utilize the green as
You froze again. Yeah, okay.
from planning events in town throughout the years or attempting to plan some events. And this is a hurdle I'm going to talk to Betsy Yagla about, is our food truck requirements in town. And I'm going to talk to Betsy about that, but it's very difficult to have events. For example, as you're aware, we have a lot of baseball games, lacrosse games, soccer games all throughout town with kids, for example. Many towns that I go to, if not all towns, have food trucks there so people can actually eat if they do not have, which we don't, a concession stand.
Yeah.
Now, that would be great, but it's very difficult to get a truck into the town of Woodbridge. We're one of the few towns that require specific permitting from the town, in addition to background checks, et cetera, from the Woodbridge Police Department. And although they may have the appropriate licenses, et cetera, from Quinnipiac Valley Health, that's not sufficient for Woodbridge. So I don't want to say that we are the only one that does that, 'cause I'm sure we're not. But I would like to talk to Betsy about that, who I think is in charge of the permitting process, or the application anyway, and see what the requirements are, and then investigate around the towns around us where that is not needed or necessary. To that end, the reason why it affects us is because obviously that would have the potential on the publicly owned property where we have games, et cetera. In addition, when we have our events on the green, it would be nice to have, the various trucks there. I know we do have some trucks there. I think there's a couple. I think there's a list. It's a very short list, if I recall correctly, and this was a few years ago, pre-COVID. There was maybe a list of 3 or 5. It was definitely in the single digits of people that did go through that process. But I have been turned down many times. I used to be on the board of the daycare in town. For a lot of people, I just didn't show up or didn't want to go through all the hoops. So that's a possibility. Not making any decisions today. This is a possibility of something that we can do. Or look into anyway. We already talked about the trail master. One of the issues too, or action items, was to develop an energy and sustainability standard for future municipal buildings. Again, that's a Betsy question. As Sheila said, poor Betsy's going to be getting an earful for being like Sheila did. I'm going to talk to her about, there was at some point an energy efficiency and recycling grant for town buildings. So I'm going to talk to her about that. Sheila gave me that information. A lot of this is coming from Sheila, by the way. So thank you. Wealth of information.
She's a font of information.
Yes, so I'm going to talk to her a little bit more in depth about that energy sustainability report, which is one of our action items along with the Board of Selectmen. So I'll touch base with you on that. One moment, please. One thing that we have to do, and I'm going to jump over to my messages that I had with Tim, because I know Tim couldn't be here. So I of course sent him questions too, because a lot of the action items were in conjunction with conservation. One thing that we do need to do as a committee is we need to update our listing of publicly owned property. That has not been updated since 2014. That's the one I have anyway. And we need to update this. So that's going to be quite the, I don't know if there's that many changes, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, but we should do that because we are going to have to, at some point, a new POCD is going to be created and the updated sheet should be on there. I know that conservation, and I'm going to jump to his email. Give me 1 second. Conservation is in the process of updating their list of publicly owned and privately owned properties as it pertains to conservation. So, 1 moment. Okay, so that's one to-do list for sure. Poor Tony. Sorry, Tony, a lot of notes here. Okay, and then let me see. I also asked one of the action items, and those of you who have been on this committee for a lot longer than me, and I know Sheila had a lot of information about this, as did Tim. I was not familiar with this area, and I'll update you on it. The COPD lists as an action item, building stairs, switchback trails, and means of ascending from Amity Road near Bradley Road to the Naugatuck Trail west of, and we don't want to call it the village anymore, right, Sheila? It's, I'll call it
Business district.
business district, thank you, business district, as an action item. I asked him if that was completed. We all know that was not completed now that I spoke with Sheila, spoke with Tim, and I got some update about that. He indicated that, and Sheila also indicated that the land behind is privately owned. Was that accurate, Sheila? That was his understanding. And that the Conservation Committee is aware of it and has it as a target on their Woodbridge Greenways extension plan. But we should also potentially, you know, ask the conservation thing, as it is an action item for us as well, to assist if that were to come to pass. Sheila, you want to give a little bit of history on that, or do you want me to reiterate?
Yeah, so I know that there's some thought of connecting this for economic development purposes, and there was some discussion with Amity Bike, which is in that plaza where the bowling alley is. It's apparently it's quite a challenging trail. I've walked part of it, and it's not as blazed as, you know, the trails in the center.
Which
of town.
trail are we talking about?
So it goes from Park Lane, the end of Park Lane, something called From
Park
Elbow,
Lane.
and then
Okay.
it comes down past the ruins of some sort of kiln or something that was there. Something was going on in the woods out there. And then it continues down and it comes out by the Wells Fargo Bank, that ridge behind Elm City Trailer.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And
beautiful.
comes down, and the thought would be you could connect to Bradley Road, go over Bradley Road, go behind Research
Okay.
Drive to where
Okay.
the volleyball center is, and then go up onto West Rock. That used to be a pathway that indigenous people would take all the way to Milford Harbor. They would follow the
Wow.
Muskogee River.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, the idea would be for economic development purposes to encourage people to come here, use that trail either for really off-road biking or hiking, et cetera, and then come and have lunch or dinner or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, there's a private property back there because I like looking at that little stream that goes down through goes through the bank, goes under the building almost. It's very, very picturesque. And then you look up, and I'd never realized that was a trail, but it's beautiful up there. It really, you know, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Right.
That
So
would
I'm
be a
wondering.
great idea.
Yeah, and again, you know, as you indicated, Lauren, as Sheila and Tim also stated, that's private property. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's something that potentially our committee, in conjunction with conservation, may want to see if
Yeah.
there's a potential way to have,
Yeah.
you know, access to that with the owners. But that's again was on the POCD as an action item.
There is a town-owned property called the Old Priest property up there. It's in the Cupop book. But there may need to be little connections in between. But there is a chunk of town-owned property up there.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. So
Okay.
that's another
Good
possibility.
to know. Yeah.
Another possibility. And then there was, sorry, bear with me for 1 second. There was one action item which Tim did not understand what was needed or wanted with this particular action item. So perhaps, Sheila, you can let us know. One of the action items was to develop guidelines for the management of open space by use designation. What was the...
So it relates to the study that FES did, Forestry and Environmental Science, the Yale School of the Environment now. There was a lengthy report. I think, Nicole, I probably promised to get you a copy of it. I know I have it. I will try to find it and email it to you if it's not already on the TOM website. but there was a management plan for both Alice Newton Street Park and Fitzgerald property. And the idea, at least back when we worked on the POCD, was we should expand that plan to create plans for other similar pieces of property. So if it's woodlands and we need to get all the invasive species out, for example, or if it's a trail and it needs to be maintained, or if it's it's a field and it needs to continue to have agriculture, we would have different plans for different categories of use that maybe we could plug and play. It would be too much to ask for every single parcel to have its own plan, but if it had a similar use, could have a plan that was kind of right off the shelf for it.
All right, great, thanks. I'm sorry, I was supposed to write down the reports that I had requested. I apologize, but that was one of them. So thank you for reminding me.
I'm on the side making a little list here and trying to grab the documents while we talk.
So that is another action item that was placed for Cupop. Sheila, now jumping to the conversation, before I get to the Sheila conversation, which I've already told you a lot of the items that Sheila, information Sheila gave me, because again, she's a wealth of knowledge with this. The old firehouse, which wasn't our action item per se, but it was on the POCD. Dwight Rowland is chairing that committee, excuse me. And I did hear from Dwight, and I have to jump to his email very quickly. He was actually on his way out of town, but he indicated to me, because I did ask him, Laura, because I am one of those coffee house people. So, and I did ask him. I said,
you have no idea how many people approach me all the time about
right.
it.
Unfortunately, what I was given the information is that the plans have already been developed years ago when he was on the Board of Selectmen. As you indicated, things do take a while on that end. And it does not include a firehouse. It is a firehouse. It doesn't include a coffee shop, unfortunately. It is including a fitness center in one of the bays, a community room for tables and chairs for meetings, a room where the town can display, historical documents, things of that nature, in addition to other things that will be there to document the history of Woodbridge. The upstairs will contain a main meeting room, which is historic in nature, along with a warming kitchen and another smaller meeting room. A coffee shop or something similar was not included in the design. Now, I was thinking what I may do is, because Dwight is on this board, not our board, but the old firehouse, to ask if he would come and speak and let us know what the plan is for the old firehouse. I may put that on. I'll see what his schedule is for the next meeting. So we kind of have an idea, because that was one of the items on the POCD, and we can ask him questions about that. So I wanted to let you know, I did talk to him, talked to a lot of people, as I said, so no one's getting my phone calls again. And then getting to my conversation, hopping over to this with Sheila, who again, I've already provided a lot of it. There was a sense in the POCD, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but, creating the library as the center and the hub of the town, which, is what I think is potentially happening with the erection of the community center in place of the old firehouse, et cetera. There was a talk of having, or I asked Sheila, was there going to be a situation where they're going to create, I know the sidewalks has always been a big question. I know that sidewalks are going in to connect the high school to the library. And I had asked Sheila if that was going to be extended to, or at least have a safe way of getting from Fitzgerald to the center. I mean, I know there's that one crosswalk there, which, from the Fitzgerald side where the dog park is, the trails and the community gardens, to get across the street, to get to the green if there's events going on there, or the community center, library, et cetera, and to connect in the wintertime to and even summer too, right? The tennis courts. So you have the tennis courts, and you also have that little playground. I don't know if that would be part of the beautification, I believe, or we discussed about that. I don't think that's on the table as of yet. I mean, other than the sidewalks going from the high school to the library. So that's a potential possibility or something that we could talk about later, and kind of think about it, mull it around in your head, think if that's something that you believe is worth us discussing. One thing I wanted to say, Sheila, and to all of you, because I'm sure you all know it's there, but I don't know where I've been living that I didn't know this, but there's that pavilion that's behind the tennis, like, so the tennis courts are here, the playground is like right across where there's a pavilion back there,
The Stoddard
Right.
family. Mhm.
which I never even knew was there. We think about ways of utilizing publicly owned property, what we could do, things like that. And if you look at various towns, they look at Orange, for example, they, do rentals for pavilions, they have rentals for their community rooms and things of that nature at their community center. I never even knew that was there, and I don't even know how often it's being utilized, to be honest. It looks pretty overgrown, but I didn't go back there because, as Laura wants to talk about, the barbarians and the chicks, but I saw it from the car, and that may be something too that we could talk about, kind of revamping. I mean, if we have a situation where we're utilizing, let's say, the tennis courts for ice skating in the winter, for example, why aren't we utilizing that pavilion to have like events in the winter? Things, all these community-based events that people are starving for, which I know because of the surveys that we have through housing and through talking to our neighbors, and I'm sure all of us have done the same. Just some ideas of things that we could potentially discuss at our next meeting as action items for us.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. We talked about that also includes the bike lanes, Sheila. I know we talked about that was the bike lane situation with the state. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I think there's been some discussion about adding to the width of the road, but that's something that Betsy Ogla can probably update you on.
Sheila and I talked about, events that had occurred on the green in the past that were not necessarily successful, such as farmers markets and Taste of Woodbridge events, things like that. Those are issues that we could potentially talk about again. It's all part of community development by utilizing publicly owned property. That's what we want. That's what creates a community. We have homes that are pretty far apart, land-wise. And so, we want to create that community development, which is one of the reasons why I think the dog park was such a need, because it's such a great community
builder. Yeah.
There's the Grove issue too. I'm going to talk to Betsy on that. I know, Patty, you were on that committee for a while, so I'm going to touch base with Betsy about the Grove because there weren't any updates, right? That's why we didn't put it back on the agenda. Is that correct?
No, and the funding and the exact projects are still a work in progress. So
Okay.
nothing further.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to find out how that can be incorporated as well for community development. That's kind of the theme here, community development, and utilizing our properties for that, as I indicated. Sheila, I have a note here to remind Sheila about the forestry school, so I apologize. There's the note. And
so far, I've only come up with the pages from that plan that mentioned the dog park at Fitzgerald. So when you were working on that dog park, I definitely had a copy of this document, and I took just those pages out.
Okay.
I'll try to find the rest of it.
Okay. All right. Let me just go through this really quickly. I really think I'm done. I apologize for talking your ears off, but one more thing. Getting back to sustainability, and we know that there's the sustainability committee, which is also an action item for us. There is the committee at Beecher. I know that Sheila and I talked about it, and also because my son is graduating from there this year, so I'm very familiar with it. The Green Team, I believe it's what it's called.
Right.
I was going to call, and I plan on calling, speak with the superintendent of Beecher as well as Jen Byers from Amity to see how it is that we can continue with that theme of sustainability. I know that Sheila had mentioned, and I'm going to double check to see if this, because we weren't sure how sustainability is working at the high school. I vaguely remember, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I haven't been to Beecher forever with COVID and everything, but, you know, teaching the kids about gardening and things like that. I know that they have that area in the middle, the little courtyard area, or in the back where they have the Halloween hoot. There used to be a garden back there, if I'm not mistaken, where the children would work on that. And I don't know if it's still there. So I want to talk to the principal, because that would be something fun that the children could actually learn about. And it goes with the theme of sustainability.
You froze again.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Then?
No, we can see you. Yeah.
You can see me? Okay. Just, again, with the sustainability, looking at the schools to see if there's anything we can do to assist and encourage that at the schools would be great. And the last action item, and then I'm done, was that there was the issue regarding trees. And so I was going to talk to Betsy about to speak to the tree warden. I'll talk to Betsy about the conservation as it applies to trees, because that was an action item on the POCD. So I'll talk to her about that. So other than that, those are all the ideas that we have for from the POCD for potential Cupop projects, which, I indicated at our last meeting, I wanted to try to find some projects for us to work on so that we can work on those projects, but even if it isn't a project, to make recommendations. One final thing, the country club. I know there was a request to have Woodbridge Land Trust come and discuss their presentation as it pertains to the purchase of the country club. As you guys are aware, there was a presentation offer made to purchase the country club for $250,000. There was a presentation. Yes, there was a presentation made. The original presentation has been updated and is now dated March, which also includes information pertaining to the pitch that they made to the Board of Selectmen. As you may recall, months ago, we voted unanimously to ask the Board of Selectmen to not make any decisions based on the country club until the housing report was completed. So I made the call as the chairperson that it was not appropriate to have other entities come and make a pitch or presentation as to what to do to the country club while we have that motion that was actually accepted by the Board of Selectmen. That being said, the housing report is, as I indicated, completed this week. It will be with the Board of Selectmen. I anticipate, and it has to be because of deadlines, completed and sent to the state by June 1st is the date, I believe. So at that point in time, I am sure now that Arbor Haven has pulled out of Woodbridge Country Club, a referendum will be sent by the Board of Selectmen. And perhaps at that point in time, we can hear from all the different parties that wish to have their, do certain things to the property. For example, Woodbridge Land Trust wants all open spaces. We're aware there was a proposal for solar farm, and of course we have the housing issue. So later on, after the housing report is completed, perhaps we can invite people to come and speak to us.
Who submitted the solar farm?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that did go before Board of Selectmen. Sheila would know, but her computer just shut off on her. She said she'll log back in.
Which land trust is quite in favor of, incidentally, sharing that possibility, in that they could be able to possibly recoup some funds from it, as well as be able to generate ideas for the future. And they could possibly work with the concepts they had, and it's more the in that presentation, it's more, the information is now based on sort of more scientific findings that they had. They could work in unison with that. So the solar farm idea could be in conjunction with land trust as well.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and then we have the housing issue as well. So we have three different, it's 150 acres.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a lot of land.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned this before, but, somebody mentioned at the housing meeting that we had, the public forum, which was very eye-opening to me, is if you've been out to Oxford at the quarry, that's only 35 acres. And I don't know if you've been out there, but that's only 35 acres. So, and they have all of that up there on only that small amount. So I'm confident that, you know, we're a town of many different individuals and many different interests that all can be met on 150 acres.
Yeah.
We could, you know, again, we'll hear from everybody that will come in and talk about, you know, their various ideas for the property. And we'll do that after the housing report's completed. So on that note, I swear I'm done. So we can move on. Thanks, everybody.
May I ask one question with regard to you trying to involve the school systems, teacher, et cetera, in projects? While I totally respect the agricultural
You know, Leslie,
You
you're
know,
frozen. Oh, there you
They're
go.
frozen. Yeah.
invasive species, et cetera. I think we really have to start thinking about some other areas as well. And I would suggest, as other towns have done, to incorporate something that is related to either, and I'm calling it STEM, but I know it's STEAM now, projects that would involve technology, so that other students who might not be as interested in the, I'm saying agricultural is a catchphrase, aspects of using the town and the publicly owned properties could be involved in trying to keep us updated, keep us going. Again, the future is what I'm thinking about, and to possibly involve those students so that they can come up with some ideas where we actually might end up being able to generate incomes for the town, and be able to put us into a I'm trying to think of the right word, current, into a more sustainable land. I would say that rather than just rely on the teachers for the involvement with the students in the trails and planting, and trust me, I'm all for that. But I think additionally, we should incorporate some of the technology teachers and see if their students can come up with ideas as well.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Now, you mentioned farming or gardening before, and I remember the PTO, I think they were going to do something at the community garden. They were going to work on an area in the community garden for students, and the students would be able to go there and plant and grow vegetables and whatnot. So I don't know if that has gotten off the ground or if it's still in limbo, but you know, that's maybe something for the PTO. Also on the topic of the community garden, I did speak to, I don't know if you want me to wait till new business to put it in new business, you know, or if you want me to include it now, but I did speak to the Boy Scouts with Tom Luciani. I forget the number, the troop number. Maybe Patty knows. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
99 or yeah, something
Yeah,
like
9 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
The troop number.
963 or yeah.
Yeah. And I spoke to him about the possibility of eradicating, having the boys eradicating the boys, the scouts, eradicate the mugwort, you know, because it's such an invasive plant at the community garden. And so they said that they have a lot of projects, but you know, because they haven't really done too much in the past 2 years, but they said that they would consider it, or you know, bring it to the committee for discussion.
Thank you.
The other
That
thing
reminds me too of something.
what's that?
That you just reminded me of something, so remind me, I have something to say about the Boy Scouts.
And then the barberry, I noticed that as you drive in to go to the community gardens, on the right, on the left-hand side, some of the barberry is coming back. So, you know, that should be taken care of. And again, regarding the barberry, one of my neighbors took her 3 little boys, I think biking at the Racebrook track. And she called me right away. She goes, "You can't believe how many barberry is here. We're going to have to, make sure we don't have any ticks on us." And I said, "Well, you do real?" She says, "Who do I call?" And I said, "You do realize that she just moved here, that the track belongs to both Orange and Woodbridge. So I really don't know where you are, and who's responsible for it. But maybe, I said, talk to Betsy first, see what she has to say, and then address it. Maybe she can call Orange and work together to eradicate, what's there." But she also said that in one of the spots, there was a sign that said, "These plants have been put here to prevent erosion." You can't find another plant to prevent erosion. So you talk about educating. So we tried to educate people, back, before COVID. And by the way, I just remembered that Nancy,
Polk,
Hope, is it?
Polk.
Polk, okay, Polk, Nancy Polk, resigned, and she's moving. And I just wanted to thank her publicly for all her years of service to this commission, because she was one of the ones that promoted the barberry and the education of people and having the seminars at the library, et cetera, and having all those talks. So, yeah. And then the other thing is, okay, I'll wait for my part where
Right.
I give you a report. Go ahead.
Now, before I forget, because you
Yes.
said Boy Scouts,
Yeah.
one thing that also we're supposed to be doing as a committee, or not supposed to, but make sure it occurs, I guess I should say, action item, we'll call it action item,
Yeah.
is to put up notifications on all of the public properties, like the ball fields and things like that, of bad, what am I thinking of? Quality of air.
Uh-huh.
So if there's a bad air quality day, we're supposed to put notification. Now, that being said, the reason I'm thinking about Boy Scouts is because I'm thinking of the fields out in Acorn Hill or on Pease. I'm not quite sure if they have a board like we do at the dog park where we could put announcements that
Yeah.
was built, just gorgeous,
Yeah.
built by the Boy Scouts. So if we don't, that may be something that we want to put there so that we can, whomever's supposed to put those notices out there can ensure that if it is
Yeah.
a bad air quality day, that the notification is put out there. So,
Okay.
and, so we could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Laura, for that.
Yeah, Nicole, on the scouts, we had that on our agenda through Cupop a while back, and I can share with you the list of all the projects that the Eagle Scouts have done, because that was shared with me, and
Thank you.
continue it. So yeah.
Great. Thanks, Patty. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Patty
thank you.
did a lot of work on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Patty. So thank you for listening to me today with all of my possible projects
giving-
and my to-do.
Am I giving my report?
Oh, yes, you are. I'm getting to. I'm just saying thank you for
okay,
listening
okay,
to me.
okay.
And now, Laura, the DEI.
Okay. All right. So the DEI, we had the Earth Day event on Saturday, which was very successful. There was a lot of traffic, and there were a lot of tables, and it was very interesting. The Boy Scouts were there again, selling plants. People were selling, some of their clutter, trying to declutter, and it was nice to see that instead of having it land in, a transfer station or whatnot. And there was a food truck there, which was outstanding. And the food truck was, I guess it's a local person, I was told. And the food truck.
Street and Savory.
Yes, Street and Savory.
Savory, yep. Mhm.
Yeah, and I understand that they're opening a restaurant in town. So do you know where, Nicole?
No, but my only guess would be if they took over the Wheelers or I think you mentioned Nepco, but I think Nepco's still there, so maybe it's Wheelers.
Yeah, so I'd like to find out because kudos to them. It was excellent. I had their beet salad and it was outstanding. And I really savored it. And their chicken waffle skewer, it was just delicious. It was just very, very good. And so kudos to them. And the other place that also, and opened up was Amity Locksmith. They moved from Whaley Avenue, and now they're in the Selden Street plaza there.
Oh, no
So
kidding. I didn't know that.
yeah, so I was happy
Oh,
to
wow.
see that. Yeah, because I was looking for the locksmith today, and I went to Whaley Avenue, and it said moved, and so then I said, well, where'd they move to? And they're in the Selden area. So the Earth Day was very successful. We're also getting a survey done. Steve Lawrence is putting together a survey, and I got to meet him in person, and he was out. He's great person too. And there was a discussion about what to plan for Woodbridge Like Me Day. I think it's the first Saturday in October. It's not definite yet, but I think they're going to do it. They're going to try to do it the same day as the road race. And the mosaic, the Woodbridge reading in community review, we had that, and we're discussing the next steps. And yeah, so I mean, things are moving along. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of positivity, and it's just really great because there's so much diversity on this committee. And the more we associate with each other, it's wonderful to see that we're all different, but then at the same time, we're very similar. Also, we have the same interests and same likes, and so it's a great group of people. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me,
Yep.
I just want to add to that the Mosaic Community Reading event, the next event is set for May 26th.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. I just
I
want to.
appreciate that. So sometimes I forget things.
Nope, that's okay. I'm happy just to add that because it's upcoming next month.
Yes.
Is that in the newsletter and all of that other good stuff?
Probably will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's mentioned in the Woodbridge Happening section, so it's there. And yes.
Great, thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Okay, Leslie, dog park.
Unmute yourself, Leslie. There you go.
Jeanette Glicksman, the dog park continues to be a lively and welcoming site for community members to gather on the Fitzgerald parcel in the center. The dog park cooperative board of directors is working to repair the pieces of a winter. The reseeding efforts are planned with excellent guidance from Adam Parsons for both the best products for the cooperative to purchase as well as suggestions regarding the schedule for seeding and maintenance. The big news, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved a plan presented by the WDPC, the Dog Park Commission, in conjunction with the Regional Water Authority to bring a potable water line to outside the entrance area of the dog park from Beecher Road. Currently, there is no potable water on the Fitzgerald property. The proposal will go before TPZ at their next meeting for an 824 review, which is stipulated for any improvement to town property. Dog park members and the public will have access to the water hydrant. And do all of you have the picture that was sent?
Yes.
All right. So she said she had attached the photo of it's a frost-proof yard hydrant. According to Adam Parsons, this kind of hydrant is already in use at ball fields in most towns. This will be installed close to the large sign directly outside of the dog park entrance, adjacent to the parking lot. The RWA installation of the hydrant and the water line will take place over a 2-day period at no cost to the town. And she said June is typically the membership month when all residents are encouraged to donate to the dog park to ensure its continued success.
And Leslie, that's still $25 annually?
I believe so. I had talked to her about it. It wasn't indicated that there was an increase.
We're
But
members.
They would also like donations as well as possible.
Did they
And
have,
thank Jeanette for that report.
Leslie, did they have any mention about, they probably don't know yet because it hasn't grown yet, but I know they were having issues with their tree, but now that we have water going in there, then they'll be able to keep the trees hydrated during the summer, so that's great.
Yeah.
Well, this is potable water. This is drinking water. It's not really to be used for growing things. It's more for the dogs and human beings to be able to drink.
Maybe they could put like a water tank, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, there.
you know, that's possible too. And
A
I know,
rainwater barrel or something. You know.
right.
Yeah.
Water barrel, that's
yeah.
what I was thinking too. That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jeanette Flexman. Shout out to her. I went Friday and got my booster shot. And so I guess booster shots are available, but you have to call and make an appointment. But it was just at the center gym, and it was just so convenient. There were hardly any people there, and they did such a wonderful job. They had the nurses from the Quinnipiac Valley group there, and you know, waited 15 minutes after the booster, and I left. So for people that don't know, now you know, it's available here in town now also,
Good.
besides
Good to know.
CVS and Walmart and all the other places. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Leslie, maybe if you want to tell Jeanette that we were talking about the potential of a rain barrel or a couple rain barrels at the site so that they can utilize that to, water their trees, because I know that that was a major issue the last couple of years because they're new.
Yeah.
And especially in those summer months and that was the other thing, Laura, I didn't make it to the Earth Day.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to somebody about where I get those rain barrels, because I know somebody was selling them there.
I guess they were selling them online, and talking about sustainability, that's very important, I think, for us to discuss and to pursue. We, and we did have a sustainability committee. I don't know if it's still in existence. I don't think so. It is?
Well, that's what I'm talking to Betsy about. I think that it is, but I will report back and let you know what Betsy says, because she apparently has all the information. So as I said, poor Betsy is going to answer that phone, and
because definitely we started the solar.
Yeah.
And that should be continued. We should be looking at solar. We should be looking at wind farms. We should be looking at all those things, because if we're going to move away from fossil fuels, we need to get moving on it. We need to get moving on it.
That's why we need STEM involved.
Which is why I didn't talk about one of the action items being bringing natural gas into the town of Woodbridge, as much as I would love natural gas in the town of Woodbridge. I mean, I don't have it where I live. I think we need to move away from that.
Exactly.
And looking at other options. But again, please mull around all of the items that I discussed tonight. I'm going to put on the agenda for new business next month to talk about finalizing our action item list for Cupop to complete within the next calendar year.
Can I just mention one fast thing about the rain barrels? Laura, we were talking about rain barrels too. We have one. We purchased one, but we did it online. You can get them on a whole lot of sites. Ours is more decorative. We have a contemporary house, so we did a contemporary rain barrel. And we have a rain chain that feeds it. What we did was we piped in underground a system so that most of our plantings in the front of our property are all watered by that rain barrel.
Wow,
that's
great.
What I want. And I think the town should go towards that too.
Yes.
Yeah, you also have the option of stopping the flow so that you can actually collect the water as well.
Right.
And it's been very successful.
So that's a possible project too, Laura, with the sustainability. I mean, I'll talk to
Right.
Betsy. But
Yeah.
that is what we should be doing with all of our plantings in the town, right?
Right, right. Well, we just put up in our community garden, we just put up a water tank. So, hopefully, that'll make it easier to water the plants in our area and on our little plot. So, yeah.
Great. Well,
And
thank
I
you,
think,
guys.
yeah, I think it's very important too, I lost my train of thought.
Sustainability.
But with the rain barrel, with the compost, we had they sold the compost containers, but they got it at such a great price. So the rain barrels, I didn't realize it until like 2 weeks, before the end of the rain barrel or before Earth Day. So I really didn't have enough time to purchase it. But sometimes they get it at such a great price, and so yeah, I would have gotten a couple, but I didn't take advantage of it. Hopefully, whoever's doing it, they'll do it again, and we're able to get them. So that these are things that I have a compost in the backyard now. I compost everything, so that's important, and this is what
Right.
encourages people to recycle and to repurpose and to put less things in the transfer station. So all right, so I think
And that's I'm going to talk to Betsy about sustainability and how we can assist with that in terms of educating people on it, because I certainly need to be
educating
educating
people
more on it. So,
yeah.
Tony, you look like so.
She wanted to say something, I think.
You want
No,
to say
Tony?
something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just want to circle back to Leslie for a moment because she was going in and out during her report. So Leslie, did you say that the Board of Selectmen approved the dog hydrant, but it has to still go to TPZ for final approval?
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought I heard, but it was going in and out and I wasn't certain. Okay.
And it's supposed to be at their next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you, Leslie.
That's all right.
All right, so I think for next time, we have a big agenda, but if poor Tony has to write all these minutes down for us to know what we're looking at in terms of possible projects and follow-ups that I'll be making with the various individuals that I discussed earlier. If there's any other new business, I think our plate will be pretty full. Does anybody else have any other ideas? And I know I'm noted your barberry as well.
Yes.
So we can put that in. I'll see if that falls under one of the categories that we're discussing.
And another thing, where the beautification section is, where they're planting the trees?
Mm-hmm.
The trees look lovely, but they've got this brush growing on the little bank. It just takes away, it distracts from the little trees that are growing. So when they, mow over there, if they could just mow, on that little embankment, completely all the weeds and, that are growing there, and it'll make it look so much more nicer and inviting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking? You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking. Because when we go by that, I say the same thing.
And I noticed, in Bethany, driving up 63, all their sides are all clean and, clear, and, they don't have all the brush and the weeds growing on the side of the road. So I'd like to see less weeds, because I think we have an ordinance that says that, that the shoulder of the road or of the property in front of everyone's property has to be cleared, like a 3-foot ordinance.
Yeah, we worked on that. We worked on that ordinance,
yeah,
actually.
right, exactly. So let's make sure that, that's happening,
Okay, great.
All right.
All right, thank you, everybody. This was a long one. So
an hour and a half almost. So you're going to call to order that we end the meeting?
Yes, I'll move to adjourn the meeting. My clock says 6:52.
Okay. I second.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.